Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the section 2 lesson 9 video. In today's video we're going to talk about the concept of what are called sun letters and moon letters. These are collection of letters, another collection of letters in which the Arabic letters are divided. Half the letters, the number is 14, are sun letters and half of them are considered moon letters. We will go over what sun and moon letters mean, what denotes sun and moon letters, and what those are in today's lesson. So let's get started. On the agenda today, we're going to quick review of the previous lesson. The previous lesson was about the shadda. As usual, I'm going to ask you to do the warm-ups. And then as usual, we're going to memorize and remember the letter collections that we've been memorizing. Then we're going to get into the major part of today's lesson, which is the sun letters and the moon letters. And finally, I will conclude with some exercises, and I'll give you some exercises and some exercise videos related to this. So let's get into it. Okay, in the previous lesson, we learned about the shadda. What is a shadda? The shadda is a W-looking diacritic. It looks like a W or a fork that appears on top of a letter. And the word shadda, it means to emphasize or emphasis. So whenever a letter that has a shadda on it, we refer to the letter as being mushaddad. And the shadda denotes that the letter that has actually the shadda on it, whether it's a ba or a ta or a tha, is actually occurring twice. The letter that is occurring twice is once with a sukoon on it, and then once with a vowel or a haraka on it. Unlike the qalqala letters, because just like in the shadda I just mentioned, the first letter gets a sukoon on it, but in unlike the regular sukoon, in a shadda you don't do qalqala on the first letter, even if it is one of the qalqala letters. The qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, we will get into that shortly as well. When it is one of the 5 qalqala letters, you don't do qalqala on the first sukoon. Okay, so this is technically what a shadda is equivalent to. On the screen below, we have on the right side, we have ra, fatha, ba, sukun, rab, and then ba, kasra, bi, rabbi. On the left hand side, we have its equivalent written with the shadda on it. This is to reduce redundancy and to make it easy to write. Ra, fatha, ba, shadda, rab, ba, kasra, bi, rabbi. On the right hand side, we have ra, fatha, ba, sukun, rab, and then ba, kasra, bi. And on the left hand side, we have ra, fatha, ba, shadda, rab, and ba, kasra, bi. But in this case, we're not going to do qalqala on the first ba. We're not going to say rabbi. That's not how we're going to say it. We're going to say rabbi, rabbi. And that's the purpose of a shadda. If you want, you can review the previous video. Some examples, I will quickly go over them. Hamza, fatha, lam, sukun, al. I'm sorry, what am I? Hamza, fatha, lam, shadda, al. Lam, fatha, la. Allah, ha, dhammahu, Allahu. Now this is one exceptional case. We will get into tafkhim and tarqiq in just a bit, but lafzul jalala, whenever it's lafzul jalala, and whenever the previous letter has a fatha on it, in this case it's an implied fatha because it's hamzatul wasl, we haven't covered that either. Hamza, fatha, lam, shadda, this lam has to be heavy. We are going to say Allahu instead of Allahu. We're not going to flatten it out. We're going to say Allahu. We're going to make tarqiq. We're going to make it heavy. Fa, fatha, fa. صاد فتحة لام شدة صل فصل لام كسرة لي فصلي شين فتحة را شدة شر را كسرة ري شري تا فتحة با شدة تب با فتحة با تب حا فتحة ميم شدة حم ميم فتحة ألف سكون ما حما. Now in this case, this meme I'm holding in my nose a little bit. I'm not saying hama, I'm saying hamma, and that's called ghunna. we're going to cover that concept later as well. In tajweed, this is hamma. Same thing with this. We're going to hold the noon in our nose a little bit. Hamza kasra noon shadda in. Noon fathana. Inna. Ha dhamma wa saghirahu. Innahu. Okay, moving on. Maddul lazim is another concept we covered last time. It means mandatory elongation, and it occurs whenever a mushaddad letter or a shadda letter, which shadda has a letter with a shadda on it, is followed immediately by one of the huruf al-mad. So immediately after one of the huruf al-mad, the word immediately following the next word after one of the huruf al-mad has a shadda on it. This is when the maddul lazim occurs. And it is denoted by a tilde-looking diacritic. It's like a squiggly line, it's a wavy line. This maddul lazim, whenever a shadda is immediately after one of the three huruf al-mad, which is in section 2, lesson 4, we discussed huruf al-mad. Whenever this mad is present, it's denoted by a tilde-looking diacritic, and this must be extended. This mad must be extended to 6 counts. And this is the longest mad in the Quran. You have to extend it to 6 counts. And this is I put this as a regular part of your warm-ups. Don't skip those. Warm-up number 12, in which I have you say and count to 6. Say and count to 6. That warm-up number 12 is in which we practice maddul lazim. And this one mad is difficult for beginners because they have difficulty in holding up to 6 counts. That's why warm-up number 12 is a separate warm-up. Okay, so here are some examples of maddul lazim. The first example that you see is an exceptional case. This is the only exceptional case in the Quran. This is an example of maddul lazim, but in this case, this alif mad is not immediately followed by a shadda letter. This is actually a lam sukun. This is an exception, and this is the only exception in the Quran in which this is a maddul lazim. You have to hold it to 6 counts, but this lam does not have a shadda on it. The rest of the letters, you'll notice immediately following the diacritic, you will notice the shadda. You will notice the tilde not the tilde, I'm sorry, the fork looking, the W looking diacritic. This is what we call the shadda. In this case, all the mad immediately following the mad, the letter has a shadda on it. But this is the only exception. So this is how it's pronounced. Hamza fatha alif mad lam sukun al. Hamza fatha alif saghira al noon fathana al-ana. Next we have Hamza fatha dad shadda aw. ضاد فتحة ألف مد لام شدة ضال الضال لام كسرة يا سكون لي الضالي نون فتحة ن الضالين. Next we have ضاد فتحة ألف مد لام شدة ضال لام فتحتان لن ضالا تا فتحة حا فتحة ألف مد ضاد شدة حاض تحاض ضاد ضمة واو سكون ضو تحاض نون فتحانا تحاضون. Now I go over a lot more examples in Qaida Nuraniya of the exercise video for the previous lesson. If you want, you can go back and you can discuss a lot more details. I'm going to skip the last two. Now, I'm not going to skip them. I'll just pronounce them out. I won't spell them out. If you want, you can watch the previous video for their spelling. الطامة الصاخة. These were the two words. Let's move on. Okay, as usual, go ahead and watch the warm-ups video. Don't skip the warm-ups. You should be taking you no more than 3 minutes to do the warm-ups. Should be easy by now. Don't skip. You want to make sure that you warm up your nose, throats, and basically repetition is key. You want to repeat the mad, you want to repeat the ghunna, you want to repeat the qalqala, you want to repeat the ta sound, the tha sound. All those are in the warm-ups. The purpose of this, the purpose of the warm-ups is so that your nose, tongue, mouth, etc. get used to pronouncing Arabic, so that it's repetition. There is no other way around it. Go do the warm-ups. I'll put a link as well. Okay. The letter collections that we've been doing, we're going to go over again. We've been memorizing the letter collections. What are the throat letters? What are the lip letters? What are the tafkhim letters? What are the idgham letters? What are the mad letters? And what are the khalqala letters? So let's go into that. Throat letters. There are 6 throat letters. Hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghayn, kha. You should memorize them by now. Hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghayn, kha. Those are the 6 throat letters. What were the lip letters? There are 4 lip letters, and those are fa, waw, ba, and mim. Hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghayn, kha are the throat letters, meaning their articulation point is from the throat. And then we are going, the 4 letters from the lip are fa, waw, ba, and mim. These are the 4 lip letters. And incidentally, it's going to become clear why we've been, memorizing the articulation points for these letters. These are the articulation point for the 4 below letters, our lips, and the articulation point for the ones on top are the throat. Okay, what are the tafkhim letters? Tafkhim letters are those letters that are always heavy. And you know what? I might have made a mistake in the previous in this video. I think I said tarqiq instead of, I meant to say tafkhim. Tafkhim means to make something heavy. Mufakham, to make something heavy, is mufakham. My apologies for that. These are the tafkhim letters. These are sad, dad, ta, va, ghayn, kha, and qaf. And these are always pronounced with a full mouth, as if you were singing in an opera singer's voice. And sad, dad, ta, va. We will go over tafkhim and tarqiq in the tajweed section, tajweed section, my apologies. Section 3 is the one that we're going to be beginning next, inshallah. We haven't gone into details of that yet. I just want you to remember these are the tafkhim letters. Okay, idgham letters. What are the idgham letters? You can remember the idgham letters by yarmalun, ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, noon. Yarmalun, ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, noon. These are the idgham letters. Now, what is meant by idgham? What is meant by idgham bi ghayr ghunna, idgham bi ghunna, etc. Ahkam an-nun sakina wa tanween will cover later. What are the 3 mud letters? The mud letters are alif, waw, and ya. Those are the 3 mud letters. And we also discussed in a previous video, the video for the sukoon, were the qalqala letters. Which were the qalqala letters? You can remember them by qutub jad, qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, qutub jad, qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Whenever these letters have a sukoon on them, their sound is supposed to be echoed slightly. Okay, if you want, you can watch the the sukoon video, in which I also go over a lot of details regarding the qalqala, or it might be a separate video, I don't remember, but you will find it in look for the qalqala video or the sukoon video in my lesson, in my channel. Okay, on to today's lesson regarding the sun letters and the moon letters. Before we get into the sun letters and the moon letters, we have to talk about what is called the definite article in Arabic. Now, what is the definite article in Arabic? Al, I've denoted by AL. Al is the equivalent to the definite article in English. Now, what is the definite article in English? The definite article in English is the. The is the definite article in English. The or the, and therefore al in Arabic also means the. And this definite article, when we say al, 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 it's not, in Arabic it's obviously written with hamza, fatha, lam, sukun, al. If you've been watching my videos, I've done plenty of examples of this. Hamza, fatha, lam, sukun, al, al. My videos are full of these examples. You can watch exercise video after exercise video. I've done them a lot. Now, what is the purpose of the definite article? Whenever we add the definite article to a word, such as book or sun, that means we are referring to something specific. So when we say book, when we say the book, we're referring to, or the book, we're referring to a very particular book. When we say sun, when we say the sun, we're referring to a particular sun, etc. All this, al, when we add al to any Arabic word, or any Arabic, when we add the definite article, we're making that specific Arabic word definite. Say, for example, these two examples that I've given you here, it's book versus the book, or kitab versus al-kitab. Okay, that would be the Arabic equivalent. Sun versus the sun would be shams versus ash-shams. Okay? Whenever we're adding the definite article to a word, the letter immediately following the lam sukun is determined how the al is pronounced. Meaning, if we say al-kitab, hamza fatha lam sukun, al, and then kitab, al-kitab, the book, the letter kaf, because it immediately follows the hamza fatha lam sukun or the definite article, it is immediately after that. That's what's going to determine how the al is pronounced. And that letter, determining how the al is pronounced, that letter will either be a sun letter or a moon letter. And we're now going to differentiate between those two. What are the sun letters? Because the definite article in Arabic ends with lam, hamza fatha lam sukun, al, the word to which the definite article is being added can start from an articulation point whose articulation point is close to the letter lam. Right? This causes an annoyance. So let's say it's al-shams, right? Because the al-shams, it doesn't really flow on the tongue. The reason it doesn't really flow on the tongue is because lam and sheen have very close articulation points to each other. And because they have close articulation points to each other, this causes an annoyance. The reason this causes annoyance, we'll talk about this annoyance in later, but just the definition is as follows. You don't have to worry about it in detail. All you have to know is the letters that have articulation points that are close to the letter lam are called sun letters, or huruf shamsiya, and this is going to be in your self-test. The letters that have articulation points close to the letter lam are called sun letters, or huruf shamsiya. So, whenever we add this hamza fatha lam sukun to any word, because that letter immediately following, if its articulation point is close to the letter lam, this causes an annoyance. In order to remove this annoyance, the lam is written, but it's written without a sukun. And we put a shadda on the sun letter in order to denote that this letter is occurring twice. And then we merge the sun letter with either a previous letter or the hamza. Now, this will become clear in a second. There's a lot of verbiage here. Don't get confused by this. We'll get into this. In just a bit. What is meant by this? We'll get into it in just a second. So, but just remember this. whichever letters of Arabic language have articulation points that are close to the articulation points of the letter lam are called sun letters. Now, if you want to learn about the articulation points, I covered that in detail in section 1. In section 1, we go all over the letters and how to pronounce them and their articulation points. Section 1 has details on it. There's like 6, maybe I think 7 lessons just on articulation points. You can go watch those videos. So, now, this annoyance that I'm talking about, I demonstrated that annoyance with الشمس, right? We observe a very similar annoyance in the English language. But in the English language, this annoyance occurs with the indefinite article. The indefinite article in the English language is right? A table, a computer. But whenever the word to which the indefinite article is being added starts with a vowel. What are the vowels? The 5 vowels are A, E, I, O, U. Or if the letter that is immediately following is silent, but the sound begins, for example, in this case, our, the sound begins, it sounds like it's the sound begin with a vowel, then we change the we don't say we add an. We say an hour, an apple, an egg, an echo, etc. All these, the reason we do that, why do we add an? Why do we add the n sound? Because a hour does not flow clearly off the tongue, does it? A hour, a egg, a elephant, a echo. No, that doesn't feel right. That causes an annoyance. That's why we say an hour. Now, in English, we remove this annoyance by adding an, right? We say an hour, an apple, an elephant, etc. Now, in English, this annoyance occurs in the indefinite article. In Arabic, this annoyance occurs in the definite article, which is da. In English, the da is pretty clear. The annoyance does not occur. But it does occur in the indefinite article. However, in Arabic, the annoyance occurs in the definite article. Moving on to moon letters. If the word to which the definite article, or al, is being added starts with a letter that has an articulation point that is far away from lam, because remember, the articulation point for hamza, fatha, lam, sukun, because the definite article ends with a lam. The articulation point immediately following the letter of the lam, immediately after the lam, if its articulation point is far away from the lam, this does not cause an annoyance. And because this does not cause an annoyance, these letters are what are called, whose articulation points are far away from the lam, are called moon letters, or حروف قمرية. Okay? Though that's the distinction. That distinction is going to be on your self-test. Those letters whose articulation points are close to the letter lam are called sun letters. Those letters whose articulation points are close to the lam are called sun letters. Those whose articulation points are far away from the lam are called moon letters. That's going to be on your self-test. Now for the moon letters, the lam is written with a sukoon and it is always pronounced. We will go into details of this in just a second. I'll give you 6 examples of this, as well as of sun letters. And the moon letter is pronounced separately from the lam. And you will see what I mean by that in just a second. You don't add shadda in the case of the moon letters. So, here are some examples of definite articles being added to words and what the pronunciation becomes. On the left-hand side, we have the indefinite column. On the right-hand side, we have the definite column. Right? We're saying sun. Translated in Arabic, sun means shams. Shams. But when we add the definite article, the sun, we say ash-shams. Ash-shams. In this case, sheen, because its articulation point is close to the lam, we merge the sheen with the alif, or I'm sorry, the hamza, and we say ash-shams. We don't say al-shams, we say ash-shams. Now in the next example is the word moon. It's translated into Arabic as Qamar. When we add the definite article, the moon, we say al-Qamar. Why do we say al-Qamar, not al-Qamar? Because lam and qaf have articulation points that are far away from each other. And that annoyance is no longer there. So we say al-Qamar. Al-Qamar. We pronounce the lam clearly, separately from the qaf. And we don't say qaf as if it has a shadda on it. But in this case, الشمس, we say the sheen with a shadda, and we ignore the lam. The lam sukun is written, but we combine it with the hamza. We say الشمس. We don't say al-shams, we say الشمس. But in this case, because this is a moon letter, the qaf is a moon letter, al-qamar, we pronounce the lam as if it has a sukun on it. Now, I'll give you a quick second to think about it. Book, which is translated as kitab, the book. How do you think this is pronounced? Is this a sun letter or a moon letter? This is a moon letter. The reason this is a moon letter is because the articulation point of the kaf is far away, and it's al-kitab. Al-kitab, same thing, but different. This is rajul, ar-rajul, ar-rajul, the man. This is an example of a sun letter. A sun letter. We don't say al-rajul, we say ar-rajul. We combine the hamza with the ra, and we skip the lam. It's ar-rajul. Now in the Quran, this is how it's written. Actually, now, by the way, technically you should be memorizing. Technically, you should be memorizing. But honestly, I've never memorized sun letters and moon letters. Why? Because over the years, I've read the Quran, and without somebody just asking me if it's a sun letter or a moon letter, I'll just think of a word and I'll just intuit if it's a sun letter or a moon letter. And I'm always right. I've never had to memorize this list. So, ta, tha, dal, thal, ra, za, the letters that are in red are the sun letters. The sun is obviously red or yellow. If you can remember it that way. The letters the letters in red are sun letters. The letters in black are moon letters. But I personally have never had to memorize them separately. If somebody were to ask me, can you name me the 14 sun letters, the 14 moon letters, what I would do is I would deconstruct the alif ba ta in my head, and I would just tell you the sun letter and moon letter intuitively, because I've done it so long. I don't have these memorized. Eventually, when you read the Quran frequently enough, you will intuit this as well. I don't think you will have to memorize this, but if you would like, you can memorize these. I wouldn't recommend against it. That's fine. You can always benefit from memorizing these. But I have them memorized by intuition, because I've read these letters so many times with examples in the Quran that I can just intuit if it's a sun letter or a moon letter. So inshallah, eventually you should be able to intuit. If you would like, as a beginner, you can start memorizing. But because I didn't memorize them myself, I'm not going to make you memorize them. That's not a problem. Okay, moving on. Here are some examples of sun letters. Notice that every time this lam sukun, hamza fatha lam sukun occurs, the lam sukun does not have a sukun on it. The lam does not has a sukun on it. The sukun is not written. Because this al, which is hamza fatha lam sukun, this definite article is added. The letter immediately following is a sun letter. That is why we don't write the lam sukun and we add a shadda on the sun letter. That's the same thing here. Same thing in all of these. These are called sun letters. These are examples of sun letters occurring in the Quran. So let's pronounce these one at a time. Waw fatha sheen shadda wash. Sheen fatha mim sukun sham. Washam. Sin kasrasi. Washamsi. Now notice I didn't say wal shamsi. Why? Because this lam its sukoon is skipped. It's not written, it's not there. We've combined waw fatha with sheen shadda. Washamsi. Washamsi. This is an example of a sun letter. Moving on. Waw fatha noon shadda one. Noon fatha na. One. Ha fatha alif sukoon ha. One-ha. Ra kasrari. One-nahari. Now, one-nahari. Noon shadda. Same thing. Hamza fatha lam sukoon. This al, this definite article, the lam is skipped. And even this hamzatul wasl is skipped. So, wow fatha noon shadda one. This is another example of sun letters. واو فتحة لام شدة وال لام فتحة يا سكون لي واللي لام كسرة لي والليل واو فتحة سين شدة وس سين فتحة س وس ميم فتحة ألف مد ما والسماء همزة كسرائي والسماء. Now in the previous four examples, we did it with a waw and we merged the previous letter. But in this case, we're going to start with the hamzatul wasl. And remember, because the definite article always starts with hamza fatha lam sukoon. Now, hamzatul wasl can be skipped if you're combining with the previous letter. We haven't gotten it over hamzatul wasl. We'll do it in a previous, in a future video, inshallah. But this is how you can also pronounce it if it is occurring, if the sun letter is occurring at the beginning of a verse or a beginning of a word. Hamza fatha slad shadda als. Slad dhamma waw sukoon slu. Al-slu. Ra kasrari. Al-suri. همزة فتحة را شدة أر را فتحة حا سكون راح الرح ميم فتحة ألف صغيرة ما الرحمة نون كسراني الرحمن. Okay, so these are all examples of sun letters. Very easy to remember, very easy to notice if it's a sun letter or a moon letter. Hamza fatha lam sukoon, hamzatul wasl with a lam sukoon will be written, and if immediately following is a shadda, it'll tell you that this is a sun letter. How will you know if it's a moon letter? These are examples of moon letters. Now in this case, in all of these cases, you will notice that the lam sukoon, hamzatul wasl and the lam sukoon is written, but the lam has its sukoon on it is written as well. Notice the lam has a sukoon on it. And the moon letter is going to be pronounced separately from the lam. The moon letter does not get a shadda on it. So let's start pronouncing these. Waw fatha lam sukoon wal. Qa fatha qa. Wal qa. Mim fatha ma. Wal qama. Ra kasrari. Wal qamari. Next we have با كسرة لام سكون بال حا ضمة سين سكون حس بالحس نون فتحة ألف صغيرة نا بالحسنى. Now this is an example in which we're going to start with the hamzatul wasl. همزة فتحة لام سكون ال همزة فتحة عين سكون أع الأع لام فتحة ألف صغيرة لا الأعلى. Next. واو فتحة لام سكون وال جيم كسرة جي والجي با فتحة ألف سكون با والجبا لام فتحة لا والجبال. Next we're going to again start with hamzatul wasl. همزة فتحة لام سكون ال فا فتحة صاد سكون فص الفصل لام كسرة لي الفصل همزة فتحة لام سكون يا فتحة واو سكون يو اليوم ميم ضمام اليوم. Now notice all 6 examples of ha, hamza, jim, fa, ya. These are the 6 letters that are occurring immediately following the lam, and you will notice their articulation points are far away from the lam. They do not cause an annoyance, and these are called the moon letters. These are 6 examples of the moon letters. The Arabic letters are split evenly. 14 sun letters and 14 moon letters. If you want, you can download the PowerPoint and you can memorize the 14 sun and the 14 moon letters if you like. So these were some of the examples of the sun letters and the moon letters. Okay. As part of the exercises, we're going to do I'm going to recommend you do Qaida Nuraniya with the last lesson. Please do this Qaida Nuraniya last lesson exercise with someone. I'm going to upload a video for it as well, but obviously I want you to do it with someone. I'm going to do a exercise supplement video with lots of examples. This exercise you can do by yourself. You don't have to do it with someone. I'm going to upload the exercise supplement with lots of examples of sun letters and moon letters. We'll go over that together. And I obviously want you to do this on your own. I want you to open the Mus'haf and I want you to find what you learned. There is going to be no page in the Quran there where you will not find examples of sun and moon letters. Absolutely not a single page where the definite article is not being used. And because if the definite article is being used, you will know if the immediately following the letter, if it has a shadda on it, it is a sun letter. But if the immediately following the definite article, it does not have the shadda on it, just has a movement or another diacritic on it, it's an example of a moon letter. So go ahead, open the Mus'haf and find what you learned today. That's going to be another exercise that I want you to do. Now, other than this, I'm not going to do many exercise videos, but I'm going to do a lengthy Surah Al-Kahf series of videos for the next few weeks. I'm going to say at least like 20 more videos I'm going to need to do for Surah Al-Kahf. If you want, you can follow along. The reason for those videos is because now after this particular lesson, we have come to the end of section 2. Section 2 was all about diacritics, right? Section 2 was all about diacritics, and we covered all the diacritics. Now, you should be able to open the Mus'haf, and you should be able to pronounce and spell out things as I am going to be doing in the Surah Al-Kahf videos. So go ahead, you can follow along with me with Surah Al-Kahf if you like, or pick another surah, pick an easy surah, go pick the 30th juz. I've done Surah Al-Fil, I've done Surah Al-Nas. Go ahead, pick one of the simpler surahs in the 30th juz, open the Mus'haf, and start to pronounce it and start to do it yourself, inshallah. Obviously, I want you to, and I cannot emphasize this enough, find someone in your local masjid and recite to them. You will find people who will be willing to do this for you. But I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to be afraid of the Mus'haf. All this work that we've been doing, all this videos that we've been recording, we've been watching, is so that you can open the Mus'haf and recite it yourself and do this yourself. The self-test will be entirely from examples that we have demonstrated. We're going to be demonstrating in the exercise supplement video and the Qaida Nuraniya videos. Don't worry, a lot of people get nervous when they hear the word self-test or the test. Ooh, they get confused. No, don't worry, you will know exactly what to expect. In conclusion, what did we learn today? We learned about the sun letters and the moon letters. Which letters are the sun letters? Those letters whose articulation points are close to the letter lam are called sun letters, and those letters whose articulation points are far away from the letter lam are called the moon letters. We learned about the definite article in the Arabic language and how that causes an annoyance, and which is why we need this distinction of the sun and the moon letters. We have come to the end of section 2. Section 2 was all about diacritical marks, in which we have, I think this is like the 9th lesson video. I'm going to say there's like 30 additional videos just related to section 2. So section 2 has come to a conclusion. In section 3, we will be starting with tajweed. Now, tajweed is a much larger concept. We will go into details of all the tajweed concepts. Go into a lot of details on that. So, inshallah, look for those videos in the upcoming weeks. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you have any questions, comments, and concerns, leave them below. If you enjoyed these videos and if you would like more, please subscribe to this channel and do share this with your family and friends in order to help me spread this knowledge and get the benefit of it for yourself and for your families, and inshallah share in the hasanat. Jazakallah khair for watching. I will see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.